So the weighted mean is broken down into two categories, okay? So I'm gonna grab my ruler and try to split this in half, okay? So just make a line down here like that, okay? So you've got, on one hand, you've got calculating the average mark. Calculating your average mark, right? Categories are worth a certain percentage. That's on the one hand what we're going to deal with. And on the other hand, the other weighted mean scenario is repetition. Values appear multiple times. Okay. So in a sense, none of these they're not going to be brand new to you. But I like to, when we talk about weighted mean, when the question asks to calculate the weighted mean, you've got your average mark scenario or repetition. So you're gonna have to decide which one is it, right? If you want to calculate the average mark, this is what the formula would look like. So I call this weighted mean. Okay. So you would take the category. Let's say it's tests, right? Category sub 1 times the weight. Plus category 2 times the weight. And that continues on for as many categories as there are. Okay, so tests, there's a weight for it. Quizzes, there's a weight for it. Exam, there's a weight for it. So that's what the ... represents. Over, divided by, and here I'm going to ask you to write down total weight, which is usually 100%. Okay, so I just want to highlight this. Weight, and then there's a total weight here. Okay. Repetition, when you deal with repetition, on the other hand, it's a little different, but there are some similarities. Weighted mean, so you kind of have to cram it, right? So you have to go data, right, times repetition. So for example, there are 10 farmers making $30,000, right? We went $30,000 times 10, right? This is how many times does it occur? Plus data times repetition plus as many times as this occurs. And the province really likes charts quite often when they do this. Total repetition, or total number of data points. So then I would like you to highlight repetition, repetition, and then repetition. So these are basically your formulas. They're not on your formula sheet. So you would have to add this to your study sheet if you want this available to you for a test, okay? And then I'm going to give you examples for each category. So example for the calculating the final marks. Assignments are worth 20%. Quizzes are worth 10%. Tests are worth 40%. Exam is worth 30%. And notice that under these circumstances, the total weight is usually 100%, right? Right. So if you add it up, 20 and 10 is 30, another 30 here is 60, another 40 is 100, right? So obviously you'd always want to assume that that's the case, okay? So let's do an example here. John scored 80% on assignments, 65% on quizzes, 70% on tests, and 50% on the exam. Calculate his final mark. So I give you the first version of doing this, and it's tricky when we have percentages. Sometimes students, that throws you off. You want to convert them to a decimal, okay? You would only convert these ones to a decimal if you wanted to, but I will show you how you can do this without converting anything to a decimal. So the weighted mean here would be, right, 80%. You scored 80% on assignments, and assignments are worth 20%. Okay? And you scored 65% on quizzes, and quizzes are worth 10%. You scored 70% on tests, and tests are worth 40%. Lastly, you scored 50% on the exam, and the exam is worth 30%. Sorry about just barely made it. And this is important, divided by. We're gonna essentially add 20%, 10%, 40%, and 30%, and put the total down here. We already know that it is 100%. Like, these are the category weights, right? So 20 and 10 is 30, another 30 is 60, 40 is 100. So you just go 100% down here. So the weighted mean, so I will show you how to do this with a calculator. So you just go 80 times 20, that's 1600, plus 65 times 10 is 650, 7 times 4 is 28, so that's 2800, plus, and you can do this with your calculator, right? 3 times 5 is 15, so it's 1500 divided by 100. So you don't need to convert anything to a decimal if you do it this way. And that is equal to, the top is 6550 and the bottom is 100. So the final mark is 65.5%. That's John's final mark. If you don't divide by 100 here, right? Let's say you don't want to do this step. You just need to divide every single one of these by 100. So that would be 0.2, 0.1, 0.4, 0.3. And then you don't have to do this divided by 100. That's the only difference. Okay, so that's how you would calculate the final mark. So let's do the other one here. Example. So we'll do taking courses. And students. It's a very simplified example. So we're ending after this, okay? So hang in there. Taking courses, students. So if a number of students taking one course is 30, number of students taking 2 courses would be 50, 3 courses would be 60, 4 courses would be 125. And that's where it ends, I guess. So there's a table here. Calculate the average number of courses per student. And here is where the wording is very key. So don't hang up. If it goes a little over, please don't go, okay? I promise you I won't go over by much. Watch what it says. It says courses per student. The per is always the, right? It's basically saying courses per student. It's the same thing. It's talking about a fraction. Notice that it says student and student is at the bottom. So sometimes students in my class, they have a problem identifying which number goes at the bottom here, right? Using this formula. Which one goes at the bottom? Well, it's telling you that student goes at the bottom. So it's these guys that will go at the bottom. And they are then therefore what we call in our formula repetition. Okay? So that's how you identify what goes at the bottom. So if you calculate the weighted mean, maybe it's easier to get that over with first. The repetition is students because it's saying courses per student. We're gonna write these down first. So go 30 plus 50 plus 60 plus 125. That's gonna be the total number of repetitions that we're dealing with. Okay, so students go down there. And now we're going to worry about the rest. Now it's basically multiplying these two. Multiply this times this, this times this, this times this, and so forth. So it's one course happens 30 times. 30 students take one course. Plus 2 courses, that happens 50 times. And notice that 50 shows up down here, right? Plus 3 courses, that's happening 60 times. Plus 4 courses, that's 125 times. think we'll make it just on time. This looks like a 2, folks. This is a 1. Okay. So it always is going to end up being you multiplying the two numbers that are side by side. That goes at the top, and make sure you add them. And don't rush, okay? You just do it. So 1 times 3 is 30, of course. 2 times 50 is 100. 3 times 60 is 180, and you can use your calculator for this. This would be 250 and 250, that's 500. Over the total, if you add these up, is 265. And then one more line, that's 810 divided by 265. That is 3.06, right? Which is approximately 3 courses per student. And this is my, in this case, we round. Earlier, like if it's a mark or a percent or time, you can do decimal, but here you have to round to a whole because you can't do partial courses. Okay, listen carefully. This is the most important thing, per student. Whatever goes after the per, those are the numbers that are going to go down here if you're given a table, okay? And we're going to do more tomorrow. So for now, just maybe make sure you have the formulas on your study sheet and stuff like that. And we'll see each other tomorrow, all right?